Do you ever feel confused in the color room? Confused when formulating a blonde, a redhead, a brunette? Well, I'm Adrienne Dara, Redken Global Brand Ambassador, and today I'm here to help you to break down those barriers and help you to master the Shades EQ palette. So my friends, let's get into it. Let's dive into the core principles of Shades EQ to simplify the choices you make in the color room with the widest demi palette in the world. Most of us, not me, I'm quite perfect, only use 10% of Shades EQ's true potential, sticking to those comfort series, 09V and 09GI and other faves. I get it. It might be intimidating when you look at how massive this line is, but I would argue that the size of the palette is what makes Shades EQ a true colorist playground. And today, we are going to unlock the full potential of this line together. Let's start with the keys to success, which lie within backgrounds, families, and reflex. These act as your guide to help navigate through your formulation process. So let's break them down, and let's begin with the backgrounds. So what is a background? Think of it as a cushion that the actual color sits on top of. It is the foundation that lives beneath the individual series. So here's the thing. A great way to think of a background is that a background is going to give you the predictability of how the color itself will deposit. Let's deep dive into each individual background Shades EQ has and break it down even further. In Shades EQ, there are 3 backgrounds. You have brown to tan, black to gray, and then no background. Series that live in the brown to tan will be more natural in their deposit, and those in black to gray will be more cool in their deposit. And those in the no background, those are going to be true to tone. Let's get into brown to tan first. If we look at the colors brown and tan, there's warmth that lives within these colors. So we know all of the series that live within this background will house a shadow of warmth, sort of lurking beneath it, a little spooky tone, if you will, right? Even those series within brown to tan, they're going to have increments of warmth. Another thing to keep in mind is that the higher the level, the more of a tan background. And the lower the level, the more of a brown background. So let me give you an example. If you have ever used a 07G and felt like it was more of a tan or a neutral deposit, what I want you to understand is that the reason for this is because that series has a brown to tan background. So hopefully that gave you a little light bulb moment. This helps you to have a deeper understanding that any of the series in this background that are 100% warm, they're going to be a more controlled deposit of warmth because of the natural foundation. Now, the beauty of brown to tan series is that all of them really make a great candidate for a zone 1 formulation because of the natural deposit that they produce. And here's the reality, is that any client on whom you choose to use Shades EQ on their zone 1, they are going to be seeking a more natural looking result. But maybe you really are thinking, well, Adrienne, it's not necessarily true what you just said. Because my client, who's a level 7 and wants to be a 5C, if I put a 5C on their root, that's not their natural root. Here's the thing, that is true. However, the thing is that they want a natural looking deposit, even if it's not their exact level. So that is why I always tell you they're great candidates for a zone 1. Now, I want to talk to you about black to gray, but I just have to be I gotta be real with you guys. I have an itch, so I just everything's going great. So, all of the series in black to gray, in this background, they're going to produce a more cool deposit. There's no element of warmth or reflection that lives within them. Let me give you an example. Have you ever had a client come in and they wanted to be a bright, light dragon queen blonde, and you do a full foil, you go into the color room, and you open those cabinets full of Shades EQ, and you think, let me just reach for the P series. Maybe it's at a level 9 or a level 10. And after you blow dry, you're feeling almost confused. Like it kind of came out muddy, right? Why did this happen? It happened because it's your fault. I'm just kidding. Well, we now know that the series in the black to gray background, they're cooler. They tend to appear darker. They appear flatter. So in your effort to make your client bright and light, you chose a family that produces a cooler, flatter result. So in this situation, what should you do? This is by no means me telling you to not reach for the P series, but rather to know your canvas. Now that you know that black to gray background lacks reflection, consider adding an element of warmth to achieve the brightness you need, right? I love viewing these series as an addition for a formula as like an extra dose of ultra cool. I rarely tend to have these specific series be like, I guess I could say the main element of the formulation outside of specifically to enhance grays. But I regularly have them within my formulas when I need just that extra push of cool. We'll talk more about all of those series and why I use it as that extra dose of cool in the formulation segment. And then there's no background. So come in close and put your ear to me, because this is really important that I want you to know about no background series. Are you ready? There's just no background. There's nothing to say. I'm just kidding. Everybody calm down. You know, series within this background, they produce pure tonal deposit. And they also produce pure anxiety when using them. Anyway, in fact, a great way to view these specific series is that whatever it says on that bottle, that is actually what is in the bottle. And that is actually how it deposits. I'm gonna give you an example because you know I love an example. I can't get past an example. But the V series. The V series gives us pure violet deposit. The way I personally use these series is one of two ways. Either I'm using them as the main portion of a formula to either cancel out unwanted warmth, neutralize, or add large elements of warmth to a formula. Or I have them as the smallest, teeny tiniest portion of a formula to help to enhance or just to add minimal yet a powerful punch, if you will, to a canvas where I'm looking to produce a more natural result. Shades EQ series have either one or two reflect colors. The primary is going to be the loudest depositing color. The secondary you can view as almost like, kind of like a blanket, if you will, that will tuck in that primary and mute its intensity. So let me give you an example. The NB series with its red and its violet reflect. The red is the loudest deposit in that formula. And then the job of the violet secondary is to sort of tuck in that red, mute the intensity of it. You can kind of think of it as it's saying to that red, hey, listen, buddy, you're cool and all, and you can be here. I just need you to chill out a bit, right? I'm just gonna boop you on the nose. Boop, boop, oh, hello. Sorry about that. So now, keeping all of this in mind, let's deep dive into the widest Demi palette itself, breaking down most of the series it has to offer, understanding what color result each of them provides, and maybe, just maybe, learn some of the Shades EQ secrets behind some of these series. The N series, while it is referred to as natural, it is actually not the true natural in the Shades EQ line. I'm sure some of you found that out the hard way, right? N equals ash, with its reflect being blue-violet. This series is really ideal for depositing balanced, cool tones onto the hair. Then the NB series. This series is in fact the true natural in Shades EQ. It has a red and a violet reflect. It is the perfect balance between both warmth and cool. It is just chef's kiss. And here's a hot tip about NB when you're doing gray blending, okay? You always wanna make sure that you have NB in your formulation. The key to success here is that you're going to look at your client and you're gonna determine what percentage of gray they are. And then you're going to in turn add that same percentage, if not more, of NB into the physical formulation. So just to simplify even more, if your client is 20% gray, you're gonna wanna add 20% or more of NB into your formula. And then there's your friend and mine, the M series. This is the very first series in Shades EQ to go to the moon. I'm just kidding. This is the first series in Shades EQ that is 100% cool in its reflect. And it also promotes a more matte deposit. So those two things, that it's cool and more matte, it's the first series that's really doing that. Most series that are cool in Shades EQ do tend to appear a little bit more translucent. And what is the why behind that? Well, it's really because of what we know to be true about the line, is that it is a translucent color line. And additionally, when we're talking about a cool series, anything that is cool is lacking strong pigment, therefore making it even more translucent. The M series has a blue and a green reflect, therefore making it just ideal for corrective color work and also promoting ultra cool results. The NCH series holds a blue and mahogany reflect. Perhaps you used the NCH thinking that it was going to be super rich and reflective and just yummy, but in turn felt like it was a little bit cooler than you expected. Like, what is going on here? Well, this is why utilizing reflect color is so crucial to your success. You can't overlook it because this helps you with understanding your series choices. With blue being the primary color, that tells us immediately that this series is more cool than it is warm in its deposit. Now let's talk about the VG series. Violet is the primary deposit in the reflect, and gold is the secondary. Have you ever used the VG series and you thought that maybe it should have been warmer, or maybe you expected it to be more balanced and actually found it to be more cool in its deposit? Well, the reason for that is because of the reflect. This is where we circle back to the importance of the reflect. Violet is your primary or your loudest depositing color within the series. This is what I want you to have a visual of when you're thinking of reflect and thinking of the VG series. While of course that secondary, right, that gold plays a part in muting the intensity of the violet, but the violet's still the main event. I mean, it's still in the driver's seat. So in this series, violet is still gonna be the loudest deposit. Now let's talk about the AG series. It is all about producing grayish tones. I want you to think beige and smoky, almost like a smoky champagne or even a dishwater tone. Its reflect is blue and then gold, so that makes it more cool than warm in its deposit. Oh, your friend and mine, the GB series. This series is the true beige in Shades EQ. It has a gold and a mauve reflect. GB deposits more of a balanced tone. It's not overly warm. Knock knock, who's there? Not the V series, because the GI series is now the #1 series in Shades EQ. The GI series is everything with its gold violet reflect. The job of GI is actually to add brightness to a tone. The GI is also amazing as a corrective series, should you ever make the misstep of overtoning. When we overtone, we need to add warmth back into the hair. However, we don't want the deposit to be too warm because we will then have to additionally neutralize it. This, my friends, is why the GI series is your best friend when it comes to any of these situations, because the gold primary is soft and the violet secondary mutes the already soft gold deposit. Therefore, it will provide the fill that you need, right, with that gold without being too intensified, and the neutralization that you are seeking. The WG series has a yellow-orange reflect, fabulous for adding richness to a chocolate brunette or added reflection to a vibrant copper or red. Additionally, WG is amazing to act as a fill for a warm golden blonde. Do not sleep on the NW series, my friends. I love using this series in a blonde formulation for a zone 1. A lot of times what we find with blondes is that they're lacking luster and they're lacking shine. And both of these components are created by an element of warmth. In other words, reflection. The fear, of course, is that we don't want to ever add too much warmth into the formula. NW is perfect for this, with its gold reflect and living within that brown to tan background. And knowing that, it tells us immediately that it's going to provide the soft warmth that we are seeking. However, because of its background, it's going to be a more controlled deposit of warmth because of its natural foundation. And now this brings us to the V series. So the V series, it's pretty simple. Its reflect is violet. And additionally, what you have to keep in mind is that it lives in no background. And because it has no background, that means that it is the friend that doesn't have a filter. So if you've ever overtoned with a V, now you have a clearer understanding that maybe you weren't so mindful necessarily of the background. So my hot tip for you when using the V is make sure that you're always adding clear into that formula to dilute the intensity of the tone. But know your canvas, right? It's important that we are aware of the canvas that we are working on because that will help us to formulate in a way that will treat the needs of it appropriately. And now for one of the newest additions to the Shades EQ palette, the NV series. This is the perfect series for a natural looking blonde. Why? Well, I don't really know, quite frankly. I'm just kidding. I'm going to tell you why. Because it's in the brown to tan background, and that tells us that it's going to carry a natural foundation. So you don't have to worry about overtoning when using NV. The reflect color of NV is violet, therefore making it cool in its deposit. Next up to bat is the NP series. This is also one of our newer series in the Shades EQ palette. With a blue and a violet reflect, NP is a great solution to creating cool blonde results for those clients who may lift warmer than expected. Similar to NV, now having a natural foundation, it really helps to safeguard you during your blonde toning process. And now the VV series. The VV series is violet, but also the VV lives in the no background, similar to that of our V series. That tells us that it's pure tonal deposit. It's true to tone. So you want to make sure that you're primarily using this for corrective color work or for ultra cool results. And now it's time to talk about the GRO series. I love this series. This is one of my top series. And I'm curious, when the GRO came out, were you so excited to create the perfect rose gold on your favorite blonde hair bestie? But upon processing it, you were a little confused because it seemed almost a little bit more champagne in its deposit. Well, you know, I'm very big deal here at Redken, and so I have all the insider tips. I'm gonna tell you a little secret. Don't tell anyone. Just come here. I'm gonna whisper it to you. It was actually originally supposed to be called the Champagne series, and then it wasn't. Then it wasn't. That's all I know. I don't really know anything. All right. Anyway, back to this. So when it comes to being confused about the reflect of GRO, why did this happen? Well, the answer always lies within the reflect color. Gold is the primary and rose is the secondary. So this tells us that it is more pale gold than it is rose or red. The rose aspect is kind of like in the passenger seat, therefore making the gold the loudest deposit. And remember from earlier, anything gold is soft, and soft is pale. And pale is a mild deposit. Even though this series lives in the no background family, it won't be intensified in its deposit because of that gold primary. Think of GRO as champagne with a kiss of rose. The T series is 100% cool in its reflect and its deposit. It has a silver and a blue reflect. And living in the black to gray background, T is ultra cool and ultra smoky. Here's a hot tip for the T series, or any of the series that live in the black to gray background. If you are incorporating one of those series into a root formulation, aka Zone 1, I recommend removing it when you go to apply it to the front hairline. Why? Well, all of the hairs around our hairline are ultra porous, being teeny tiny little baby hairs. So black to gray background series, we now know are ultra cool, right? Lacking reflection. So if you formulate, and let's say that your formula is an N and an NB and a T, it's okay to apply that in your interior, but once at the front hairline, I really recommend removing that T and just reformulating to an N and an NB only. This will avoid the possibility of a muddy deposit at the hairline. And if you ever forget, I'll give you a little tagline. I just made it up right now, so please don't judge, but you can always remember this. Take out that T. Woo! The AA series. This series is super interesting to me. And before we get into it, let's just get one thing straight here. It is not double ash. The reflective AA is orange red. So the lighter the levels of AA, levels 9 and 10, those deposit almost like a very light rose gold. Whereas the lower the levels at 7 and 6, they deposit very orange. Let me give you a visual. Bozo the Clown, right? That's kind of what we're talking about. All of the AA series are amazing to act as a fill for a brunette or a copper, or to add soft reflection to a vanilla blonde formula. My hot tip for you is that when I'm adding AA into a blonde formula, I recommend always making it the smallest portion, because even at a level 9 or 10, it's going to have that light rose gold-ish deposit, but it still has notes of orange and red within it, which are louder depositing tones. So the CB series is next, and this series has a red and an orange reflect. It lives within the brown to tan background, so it does have a more natural foundation to it. While it is vibrant in its deposit, it is simply because of the fact that anything red or anything orange will inevitably be loud, because those are bolder colors, right? CB is amazing for adding into a Zone 1 formulation on a client who is seeking to be more of a natural copper result. I love, if I'm trying to produce that type of a result, combining CB with an NB for this just natural copper brown hue. And I will also, in those cases, most of the time, do equal parts of the two of them. Oh, RB, RB, RB. I mean, this is a really interesting series because it has one singular reflect, and that is red. However, what you have to keep in mind is that background. It's in the brown to tan. So this tells us right off the bat that the RB series, it has a more natural deposit, even though it has a singular red reflect color. RB deposits similar to a blush hue. I love adding it into a blonde formula, really honestly for controlling the cooler series within the formula from overtoning, of course adding in reflection as well. And don't be afraid of that red reflect within the blonde. Utilizing this series at a lighter level, such as a level 9, let's say, it means that it's going to be light in its deposit. Let me explain a little bit more. Anything that is a level 9 or a level 10 is going to be a paler, softer deposit because the level itself is light. Okay, let's talk about the G series. We talked about it a little bit earlier, but let's get more into it. So the G series has one singular reflect, and it's yellow. Yellow, you know what I mean? While its reflect is 100% warm, I would describe G as more of a controlled deposit of warmth. G is a must in the color room, and it can be utilized for all tones of hair color. I mean, if you look at a blonde, right, you could put it into the formula to get brightness. If you look at a brunette, you could put it into the formula to get richness. I have been waiting for this moment. I've been waiting for this exact moment because I get to finally talk about clear. I love clear on a level that is so clear. So the first thing that we need to just say to begin with is that clear is color. Did you know that? Clear is color. You must mix it with processing solution or gloss to gel to ensure the product is activated. The job of clear is to dilute the intensity of the tone. Well, okay, cool. I mean, what does that mean? I'm not really sure, right? Well, the more clear you add, the more control you gain. Clear isn't going to alter the physical level of your formulation, but rather soften the deposit of the reflect colors within the series. Okay, so think about it. Let's go back to your friend and mine, 09V, right? If you were to take 09V without any clear and just with processing solution, and you apply it, you let it process for 20 minutes, it will be a strong and an obvious violet deposit. But if you were to add clear into that and allow it to process for 20 minutes, based off of how much clear you choose to add, the more of a controlled deposit you will have. That rhymed. I am a poet. Clear is your safety net for your clients with porous hair, or if you're feeling nervous about overtoning. Clear is also wonderful to use when low lighting. I mean, let's be honest. When we are low lighting, it's usually processing longer than 20 minutes, guys. Come on, you know it is. I am for sure. So I like to put clear into the formula to sort of assist in controlling the reflect colors from reaching their full potential during that whole application, because they're going to be processing for so long. Always remember this, clear equals control. Now it's time to talk about Yellow Kicker. The thing is that I really feel like Yellow Kicker should always be in your color cabinet. And the reason is because this series lives in the no background family. And full disclosure, if you use this without clear, you are looking at Big Bird Yellow. So why would you utilize this series? It's incredible for adding vibrancy to a brunette, intensity to a red or a copper, and also it's super, super cool to act as a fill for a client who's going darker. The key is that if I use Yellow Kicker as a fill, I add in clear to dilute the intensity of the tone. If I incorporate it into, let's say, a brunette formulation, I tend to make that Yellow Kicker the smallest portion of the formula. Processing solution and gloss to gel. Listen, both are developer and both are going to help you achieve the same results. The difference with the two, it lies within the density or the texture of the product. Gloss to gel is a thicker consistency, making it ideal for precision applications. So if you struggle with saturation or accuracy in application, that's okay, because gloss to gel will be ideal to help you. Processing solution, otherwise known as the OG of Shades EQ, is great for global glossing or for zone 2 and 3 applications. Now that we have taught you how to read and understand the widest demi color palette in the world, let's teach you how to formulate with it.